Hi guys, my name is Natalia and welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share my January wrap up as well as my February TBR. So I prepared a stack of books here that I will go through with you. So let's start with the books I read in January. First one is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So I actually technically started reading it in December, but I finished it in January, so I'm just adding it to my January list. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was pretty hard for me to rate because I personally didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. I felt like some of the aspects were really interesting and really well written. It was pretty long and confusing, especially at first. It was so confusing. So basically this book tells the story of Alex, who survives unsolved multiple homicide, and in the end she's offered a scholarship to attend one of the most prestigious universities. And that is all because she can actually see ghosts, and there are secret societies in this university that they all deal with different kinds of magic, and seeing ghosts is kind of an asset for Alex, so they choose her to be a part of the secret society. That's basically what it's about. At first, like I said, it was pretty confusing. We were just bombarded with so much information and world building. I was like, what is happening? I have no idea. By the end of the book, I did kind of understand how the world works, but it was pretty confusing, so I probably wouldn't recommend it to someone who's a beginner in reading fantasy. But anyway, I feel like the characters were pretty lacking. I didn't really like them, and for someone like Leigh Bardugo wrote Six of Crows, which is one of my favorite books, and it has literally one of the best characters of all time. So seeing that she went from that to Ninth House, Ninth House is just lacking compared to Six of Crows. It is different. Obviously this one is adult fantasy, it's not young adult. It is different. It does have some pretty drastic scenes and descriptions as well. Overall, I did like the mystery because there's a murder mystery that they're trying to solve, so that aspect was very interesting. I do love a good mystery, but there were also a lot of scenes that I just thought were unnecessary, and like I said, the characters weren't super memorable, so I just ended up giving 3.5 stars. It's not bad, but I also didn't love it too much, if you know what I mean. Will I continue the series? I think I might. I'm just really interesting because there's a cliffhanger at the end of the book, and there's this one thing that's not solved, so I'm just curious to see how it goes. So if I feel like reading the next book in this series, I think I might do that, but yeah, we'll see. The second book that I read was The 7 Year Slip, and this is a romance with magical realism, and I ended up giving it 5 stars, so I really enjoyed this one. It tells the story of Clementine, and unfortunately her aunt, who she was very close to, passes away, but she leaves her apartment. So Clementine gets the apartment that her aunt used to live in, and she moves in there, and her aunt used to tell her stories about this apartment being magical and being able to bend time and all of that, which Clementine believed as a child. But then when she grew up, she was like, okay, I guess magic doesn't really exist. But then she starts living in that house, and one day she finds a man in her apartment, which she's very confused about. He said her aunt had let him stay there for a while, and then she also realizes after she sees the calendar on the wall that it's actually 7 years before. So she starts to realize that every story her aunt used to tell her about the apartment was actually true, and they kind of click instantly. They have crazy chemistry together. But obviously she knows it's not a great idea to fall for this guy because they literally live 7 years apart. She doesn't know what his life looks like in her present time, which for him is 7 years later. And then she actually ends up meeting him in the future as well, but he just seems a little different than he used to. So, you know, it's just like a story of present and past coming together and them like falling for each other in the present and in the future and overcoming any obstacles. It also talks about grief because the main character lost her aunt. Talks about depression, talks about like doing things that you want to do and that you love instead of things that people expect you to do. It's just really beautiful and touching story. I don't know, Ashley Poston has a way of writing about characters and writing about the falling in love that just makes me blush and makes me feel butterflies in my stomach and just feels so realistic. Actually, the characters, they were very complex and realistic, which I really appreciate. I loved so many of the characters. I just really enjoyed this book. It's not like cringy at all, because I find that sometimes romance books can be cringy. I didn't find this one to be cringy. I thought it was really beautiful and raw and emotional, so I highly recommend this book. Okay, and now the next book that I read in January is a thriller called The Sun Down Motel. This book tells a story from two different perspectives. The first one is that of Vivian, who lives in, I believe, 1982. Yeah, 1982. She starts working in the Sun Down Motel, which is pretty creepy, by the way. Not many people stay there. And one day during her shift, she's doing the night shift, by the way, so during her shift she goes missing. But like no one even notices that she's missing until after 4 days later, and not even many people make any effort to find her. So eventually she was never found, not even her body. Nobody knows what happened to her. And then fast forward to 2017, her niece called Carly, so her mother recently passed away. Her mother, so that means Vivian's sister, and she's just dealing with a lot of grief and frustration, and she thinks that solving this mystery that haunted her family will somehow help her heal. So she goes to Fel, which is where the motel is located. She goes there and she just wants to solve this mystery, because also apart from Vivian, there were like other women that were murdered in the area and at that time. So she thinks maybe it's connected, but she's not sure, so she's just playing a little detective, and she meets some different interesting people along the way. And actually I really liked a lot of the characters in this book, which rarely happens for me when I read thrillers. Like usually thrillers for me are more like story based. Like I love the story and the plot twist. I don't pay that much attention to the characters, but I feel like in this one there were so many likable characters, even though I still found a lot of them suspicious, because I feel like whenever I read thrillers I feel suspicious of almost everyone. But anyway, I feel like the characters were great and they really made me feel engaged in the story. I was really interested. I love the spooky vibe. So it is about this solving this murders and this disappearance, but it's also about ghosts. So it has this paranormal aspect to it, and there are ghosts in this motel as well. And I have to admit that while reading this, I felt a shiver run down my spine multiple times. I was really spooked. So I ended up giving it 5 stars actually. I was contemplating giving it 4.5 stars because I felt like the plot twist could have been a little bit more shocking, but like overall I had a great time. I loved the characters, I loved the story and the setting, so I just ended up giving it 5 stars. I thought it was a great thriller and I would highly recommend it. Okay, so now let's move on to my February TBR. Now I am going on a trip to my home country, which is Poland, and then also to Italy. So I might not have that much time to read in February, but I will try to read as much as I can. So the first book that I already started reading is called Local Woman Missing. So in this book, one woman goes missing, and then like a few days later, another woman together with her daughter goes missing as well, and like they're not sure if these cases are connected. And then I believe 11 years later, the daughter of the second woman actually is found. Everyone wants to know what happened to her, but they're not prepared for what they will find out. So yeah, I started reading this. I think, yeah, it's really interesting so far. I don't have many thoughts yet, so I will probably update you in another video, but it does sound pretty interesting. Okay, the next book has been on my TBR for quite some time, and I really want to finally read it, and that is Belladonna. So it is like a fantasy book, but it has some like mystery in it and some gothic vibes apparently. So our main character Signa has been orphaned as a child, and then later in her life she meets the mother of her ghost, who claims she had been poisoned, and then Signa realizes that her family that's taking care of her now could be in danger, and she forms an alliance with the Death himself in order to uncover her mother's murderer. That's basically all I know about this book, but it sounds incredibly interesting, and I heard some great reviews about it, so I'm really excited to dive into this one. Okay, and the last book that is on my February TBR is called A Study in Drowning. Oh my god, first of all, let's look at the cover because it's so beautiful. I'm literally in love with the cover. It's probably one of the most beautiful covers I own. So stunning. I also heard great things about this one. I really want to dive into it. So what is it about? I'm not sure actually. Let me read from the synopsis. So there's like an author that our main character Effie really likes, and then this author family announces a contest to redesign the late author's estate. And Effie feels certain that this is her destiny. But then there's like another student who tries to investigate the author's legacy, and they kind of become rivals. So maybe it's rivals to lovers, I'm not sure. But it says, as the two rival students investigate the reclusive author's legacy, piecing together clues through his letters, books, and diaries, they discover that the house's foundation isn't the only thing that can be trusted. There are dark forces, both mortal and magical, conspiring against them, and the truth may bring them both to ruin. So it sounds really interesting. Like I said, the cover is stunning, so I will keep you guys updated on what I think about all of these books. That is it for this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.